Teachers of Reddit to have taught sex ed or some variant on it. What was an absurd sex misconception that you had to explain to some kid? Talking about stees. Does anyone know what gonorrhea is? Isn't that when a boy gets diarrhea? But out of his dong? Trying to answer that with a straight face was probably the single biggest challenge I've encountered in the role. That actually isn't too far off. In fact, not a teacher, but during sex ed we were talking about tampons and a girl asked what happens if you put it in the wrong hole? And the teacher pauses and goes, you mean your anus? Girl: yeah. Teacher: I don't understand your question. Girl: well, what if you put it in the wrong hole and you didn't know? Teacher looking baffled: you would just know? If you were eating and put the fork in your nose, you'd know it's not your mouth. I can sort of relate. Sometimes when I'm eating dinner, I accidentally put food in my ear and then I start wondering where my dinner is disappearing to. I'm a high school teacher and we teach reproduction. One girl asked how long sperm survived inside a woman. She said her and her sister were 2 years apart in age. So sperm has to last at least that long inside. I had to be the one to tell her that her parents are probably still having sex. Depends. Was she an ant? They're a one hump jump kind of folk. Had to explain that despite what they saw on Glee or heard online, a girl cannot get pregnant from being in a hot tub. They clearly didn't watch Glee very well. He thought balls were to stop you accidentally going all the way in. Fair at the base. It kinda checks out. I'll always remember the look of total confusion on my teacher's face as a kid in my class explained that a condom was something two people went into to have sex. Bit like a latex tent. The sex tent. Not a teacher, but we had a girl in my high school tell the teacher you can get pregnant from oral sex because her mom told her that's how she got pregnant with her. Pretty sure her mom told her that so she would be scared to give out blowjobs. But the ensuing argument with the teacher was comical. I had a 15-year-old student who was shocked when she got pregnant having unprotected sex. When I asked her why she was so shocked, she said, I thought it would be okay if I was on top, you know, gravity. I can follow her logic. But damn, that is so far off. When I was in 4th grade, my teacher of religious beliefs, Ensino religioso in Portuguese, was giving us a sex ed class. She told us that girls shouldn't wear skirts to public transport. Only jeans. Because a man could ejaculate and have some of his sperm left in the bus seat. And when we would sit on top of it, even if dry, the heat from our bodies could make the sperm active again and it would run up our legs and all and get us pregnant. She said it could cross any material except jeans. It took me many years to feel calmer on public transport. BRB just got a nut on a public transport. Not a teacher. But I remember a classmate thinking women gave birth through their buttholes. I'm a girl and I genuinely used to think this too. Granted, it was when I was very young, but also where did that come from? I really thought you just pooped out a baby. Not a teacher, but what my teacher had to explain to me. Assignment was to create a sex ed pamphlet for grade 9 gym class. I did one on how to put on a condom. With a little drawing and infographic. He explained to me in front of the entire class that the condom does not in fact go over the testicles as well as the penis. RIP. But some do. So you weren't wrong. Definitely worth going back and getting graded. Some girl had been told it's okay without a condom. BC, you can kill all the sperms afterward just by dousing W Sprite. No. That's how you give birth to Kid Rock. I taught it in the army to basic trainees. I didn't really consider anything absurd. But I got a lot of disbelief about the fact that most STDs can be transmitted orally, so BJ's aren't safe sex. The teeth and vagina thing came up more than once. A lot of religious homeschool kids going straight to the military. I think the oddest one of my class is it somehow came up about how she could only get pregnant if she enjoyed it. I don't know how that came up. I'm sure the soldier didn't intend to rape anyone. I just had to explain it didn't work like that with a straight face. Other fun topics that came up were where we needed to explain that certain races weren't more or less prone to transmitting or carrying an STD. HIV is equal opportunity. It may be more prominent in a geographic community, but race doesn't make you more or less immune. If anything, I learned just how diverse and generally bad the levels of sex education were, depending not just on where someone grows up but how they grew up. And then, to inject our own propaganda after the fun conversations, we got to show them a slideshow with the absolute most messed up extreme cases of STDs we could find, combing medical books and the internet. BTW. The most effective form of birth control is to not give your real name. JK. Teeth in vagina? Is that a story told to discourage boys from having sex? I thought about researching myself. On second thought, I imagined what I would have to search for. So, not a teacher, but I witnessed a 6-year-old asking a pregnant woman what's inside of it, pointing at her belly. The woman said, "My baby." The little girl bursted into tears screaming, "Why did you eat her?" Has happened before with kids. A friend of mine thought people randomly get HIV from anal sex. Not because the other person has it, but just magically appearing because you did the act. He was in his 20s at the time. There's two ways of could think of that he might have come up with this. First, just that getting fecal matter in the wrong place could cause the problem. Or maybe semen? It kind of makes sense. You can get pinky from poo in your eye. Why not a unique ailment for poo on your dong? Second, disease as literally God smiting the wicked. My friend thought there was an actual bone in a penis. Hence boner. I've heard some animals actually do have penis bones. Seen a picture of a raccoon pee bone before. Obligatory. Not a teacher, but I really pity the sex ed teacher who had to explain to me oral sex was not, in fact, kissing. For years I thought I'd had oral sex because I kissed a boy when I was 8, and during our abstinence only, of course, sex ed in middle school, I started to flip out when they talked about it. I used to think that the word oral referred to the ears and auditory senses. I guess because I thought oral test meant that you hear the test and write down your answers. Imagine my bewilderment the first time I heard the term oral sex. Yeah, let that sink in for a moment. Not a teacher, but heard it asked. Kid said, "I heard that in lesbian couples they get pregnant from sperm stored in their elbows. Is that true? Did they conflate weenus and penis? How you don't have to pee in the girl to get her pregnant? Shut up and let Emmy have this. She's getting suspicious." If the man puts his penis in 2 times, do you get twins? Nope. You need a second penis if you want twins. I was a sex ed teacher in Tennessee for 3 years. Public, magnet, and juvenile detention centers. But no matter where I was teaching, the same bizarre myth kept coming up. Boys asking me to confirm that if you take earwax and stick it up a woman's vagina, and she jumps, that means she has an STD. Where did that idea come from? How is it such a pervasive myth down there? Why did I never hear it growing up in Pennsylvania? So many questions. I mean, if I was a woman and someone put earwax up there, I would jump too. Sexually active teenagers asking me if they could get pregnant during anal. 2 girls had actually taken morning after pills to after anal to avoid pregnancy. This was a 10th grade class. As far as mistakes go, being overly safe with sex isn't worst one you could make. Read your story after your edit and it makes me think you're a really ducking good teacher, man. Don't worry about having to justify yourself though you helped someone. Not a teacher, but there was a guy on my bus who thought women never grew pubes. It was just a male thing. He overheard me and my friend discussing hair removal treatments and was like, but you guys don't grow hair down there, bless him. He was 17. It doesn't completely fit. But when I was 15ish, I often were home at my friend's place and their neighbor's daughter, around 7-8 years old, would rarely come over. You know when children are excited about something they know and look at you like a superior being? That was here, and she said she knows where kids come from. I thought that will turn interesting but didn't expect that. So apparently, according to her mother, white babies come from angels. Yellow babies out of the pee hole and black babies out of, I guess you can think of where. I didn't know the actual neighbors, but that gave me quite enough of a picture. Holy shit, that's some serious racism right there. I'm not a teacher, But I was in a sex ed class, of course, where they had to explain to a fellow peer that you can't just layer condoms like a lasagna for extra protection. Well, in the Navy they teach one condom first, then cover it in Vicks or deep heat. Something like that. Then a second condom over the top. The story goes, if you start screaming pull out because you've already broken one condom, and if the other also breaks you're likely to contract an STD. This was for sure even Asia. Back in the 80s. Edit. To be sure, I'm not condoning this. Doubling condoms makes it way more likely for them both to fail, not to mention the harm to the poor person receiving the treatment. I worked with a bunch of old Navy boys and stories like this were pretty common. I know during sex you pee on the girl. But where do you pee? Not a teacher, but had to explain to a group of boys in their early 20s that your prostate is a necessary part of your reproductive system and not just something doctors finger around for to check for hemorrhoids. Today I learned what happens to people who have theirs removed. Not the teacher but the kid. I was in 5th grade. I was the a-hole who asked the teacher what would happen if you pee inside a girl during intercourse. I mean, it was kind of a valid question. I had no idea what intercourse would be like at that age. And my first thought was, what if I had to pee during? I caught the male teacher off guard and he just laughed and said, well, that would be very rude. I mean, I know why I didn't get laid in school. Those girls spread the word that I'd pee during intercourse. Nuked my chances. I asked that too, and I'm a girl. Perfectly valid question, frankly. Concern, cause I didn't want to get peed inside of. Edit. An English language learner student on a body systems quiz got the skeletal and reproductive systems mixed up. Possibly it was a random mistake. Possibly she got confused by boners. My friend thought that girls got pregnant by kissing and the condoms were in fact bubblegums with different flavors. Not a teacher but a fellow student asked my sex ed teacher if douching with Mountain Dew after sex was an effective contraceptive method. I'm pretty sure he was joking. But the look on the teacher's face was pretty priceless. This is not the first time I've seen that question in this thread. He may not have been joking. When I was teaching in a middle school, there was one boy who was in my lesson. Let's call him David. Who was not the brightest and would ask the most ridiculous questions as he had so little self-awareness. So as I am teaching the sex ed topic, there were some funny moments. Some really nice moments when kids asked genuine questions that others in the room seemed to really appreciate. But this was all accomplished because, despite me normally being a bit relaxed as a teacher, being super on it in terms of classroom management, as I did not want any joking about in this topic. So as David puts his hand up during the lesson about menstruation, everyone suddenly focuses in on him, as they know this will probably be good. And then on this day, the lining breaks down, and the period begins. Yes, David, you have a question. And as cool as anyone without any concept of how much this conception missed the mark, he asks, is that when women get orgasms then? There was a brief pause when time seemed to slow. All the students looked at me to figure out how they might be able to get away with reacting. Then the teaching assistant cracked first, letting out a little stifled laughter. Then the entire room exploded. Poor David looking around with a quizzical expression. Once we all pulled ourselves together, I coolly explained that no. Periods are normally associated with painful cramps or a general uncomfortable feeling rather than good feelings. Which is what an orgasm is usually being referred to as. Girl didn't know kissing wasn't what made people pregnant. She thought if you have sex but don't kiss you're safe. Not a teacher but a fellow classmate asked if it were true that gay men get HIV because they don't clean sperm out of their buttholes after sex. So all his old socks have HIV? Not a teacher either. But once a kid in my class thought that if you gave birth, you would have died instantly. Star Wars III is not a sex ed film. That the less people women had sex with, the more fertile they were. This was from an adult male from a different country to mine. So I don't know his cultural norms, but I'm assuming it stemmed from virgin women equals pure. Basically he thought if you met a woman who had slept with numerous men, you weren't as likely to need protection because she's probably unable to have children. The vag. Urethra and anus were the same hole according to her. I wasn't gonna debate that though. What? You don't have a cloaker? Not a teacher but a guy in my sex ed class once asked in full seriousness that if a woman was on the contraceptive pill for 10 years and then came off of it, would she get pregnant from 10 years worth of sperm buildup? This was in our final year of school, so we were all 17-18 years old at the time. Make sure to like and subscribe so we can watch together.